Morning, everybody. Time is now 9:32 a.m. This is time and place for our regularly scheduled business meeting at the Montana Public Service Commission. Today's date is Tuesday, April 4th, 2023. I call this meeting to order. Would my colleagues please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? All right. Please let the record reflect that Commissioner O'Donnell, Commissioner Pernocchi, myself, Vice President Fielder, and Commissioner Bukacek are all present today in the Bollinger Room, so we do have quorum. All right, the Montana Public Service Commission welcomes public comment on any matter contained on today's business meeting agenda or on any matter within the jurisdiction of the Montana PSC. So are there any public commenters in the room? Public commenters in the room, seeing none. Are there any public commenters online? I understand we do. So for those who are going to comment online, the way that we'll operate this is that those that contacted the commission in first or in order, I will call on you on that order. So with that being said, Mr. Jasper Schur. Mr. Schur.
Hello.
Go ahead, Mr. Schur. Go ahead and state and spell your name for the record, and welcome.
Hello, my name is Jasper Schur, JasperSchurr. I live in Livingston. I'm commenting in opposition of Northwestern Energy's proposed 25.6% energy increase. I can't afford to live where I work, so I spend almost a third of my day in traffic, driving a treacherous pass that is icy and dangerous for most of the year. The cost of living in Montana is already difficult enough. Businesses can't retain workers because their workers can't afford to live where they work and have to leave. The ones who keep their jobs either commute or work oppressively long hours in multiple jobs just to afford apartments with more roommates than there are rooms. My friend lived in a closet under the stairs for almost a year. Here in Montana, we already pay more for our electricity than North Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. The only state in the surrounding area that we pay less than is South Dakota, which coincidentally is the only other state covered by Northwestern Energy. Northwestern doesn't need a 25% increase to ensure reliability. All of our neighboring states pay less for their reliable energy. They need it to line their pockets and to pay the salary of their CEO, who makes more than the average Montana's annual salary in just a week. We had record cold spell this winter and power stayed on. I urge you to consider the struggle of working Montanans, how it's already hard enough for us to get by, especially our young people. Northwestern's rate hike is a blatant money grab that will be catastrophic for many of us, especially when combined with the housing crisis in much of the state. We can't afford this. I can't afford this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schur, for your public comment today. We'll move on to our next public commenter. This would be Miss Josephine McMahon. Miss McMahon, are you on? Okay, we'll move on. We'll circle back with her. All right, our next public commenter would be Miss Nielsen. Miss Nielsen, are you on?
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, honorable members of the Montana Public Service Commission. Please forgive me, I'm not used to public speaking. I'm here to speak on behalf of the many Montanans who are currently struggling to make ends meet in the face.
Ms. Nielsen, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you go ahead and state and spell your name for the record, please?
Oh, my apologies. It's Genepoix Lorraine Nielsen, JENNIPHANIELSEN. Thank you. Oh, and I'm speaking to you from Missoula, Montana.
All right, well, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm here to speak on behalf of the many Montanans. Sorry, I lost my track. I'm here to speak on behalf of the many Montanans who are currently struggling to make ends meet in the face of record inflation, extreme cold, and a long winter. And I know as Montanans, we've all shared that together. I'm urging you to vote no on the proposed 25% rent increase by Northwestern Energy. The rent increase is going to have many negative and potentially deadly effects on families, seniors, and farmers, along with small businesses across Montana. We're already struggling, as you know, with record inflation, and the rate increase will only worsen that. Montanans are currently choosing between paying their energy bills, buying groceries, and medication. But one thing I wanted to bring up, there's 6 generations of my family in Montana, and we've stretched from Terry, Montana to Missoula. Ranchers and farmers in Montana are already facing numerous challenges in their day-to-day operations, from unpredictable weather patterns to supply chain disruptions caused by the pandemic, and an added 25% increase in their energy costs will only add to those challenges. Ranchers and farmers depend heavily on energy and power to run their operations during winter and summer, running irrigation systems, powering machinery, equipment necessary for planting, harvesting, and processing crops. The increase in energy costs will have a direct impact on that bottom line, the profitability, making it even more difficult to make ends meet. But the increase will also have a domino effect on the industry in a whole. Farmers and ranchers will be forced to absorb the costs initially, then adding the additional costs onto consumers, which will ultimately lead to higher food prices and lower the demand for locally produced foods. Moreover, ranchers and farmers may be unable to bear those costs, and as a result may be forced to close operations, leading to a significant number of job losses and economic hardship. My family has been in Montana long enough to see a lot of industry changes, but ranching and farming is still at the core, the heart of Montana. This impact will also affect seniors and this cannot be overstated. As many of them are already struggling to make ends meet and afford basic necessities like food, housing, and healthcare, the extreme cold and long winters we've experienced this year has already put a strain on them and their budgets. With heating costs skyrocketing, if you approve this rate, the burden on households will become unbearable. The proposed rate increase will have devastating effects on seniors, forcing them to really choose between the 3 necessities of food, medicine, healthcare. I also wanted to talk to you about what we're having to do in summer. We have extreme heat along with extreme cold. During the hot months, seniors will be forced to limit their use of air conditioning, which for many can become life-threatening for those with underlying conditions. Seniors that are heat vulnerable will not be able to cool their home and will have serious health consequences. Also, there's an effect on the medical industry. Being here in Western Montana, we're very proud of our medical industry and the fabulous hospitals that we all support. The medical industry is critical to the health and well-being of Montanans, and many of these increased costs will have a significant impact on them to provide the high-quality healthcare we've all come to appreciate. Because hospitals and medical facilities require a significant amount of energy to operate, from lighting, heating, just imagine how much that MRI machine costs to run. Furthermore, many hospitals and medical facilities in Montana are already facing financial challenges due to the ongoing pandemic costs. A 25% increase in their energy will add to the financial burden, making it harder for them to provide care and services for Montanans that we rely on. The impact increase will also be felt by patients who rely on the medical equipment to manage their conditions, along with other devices. Many patients will be forced to choose between paying for their medical care and paying for their energy bill, which will lead to serious health consequences. In conclusion, I want to implore you to consider the devastating impact that this rate increase will have on the people of Montana, just like you and me. The cost of energy is already too high. Adding another 25% will only serve to worsen a dire situation. Please vote no on the Northwestern energy rate increase to ensure that Montanans can continue to afford the basic necessities of life, and for you to help us ensure that we can keep the lights on. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your public comment today, Ms. Nielsen. All right, we'll circle back to Josephine McMahon. Josephine, are you on?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead and state and spell your name for the record, and welcome.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Josephine McMahon, JosephineMCMAHON. I'm calling in from Bozeman, Montana. I'm at work right now. I work for the state. I work for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and I'm an aspiring conservation biologist. I graduated from Montana State 2 years ago, and ever since graduating, I've worked 2 to 3 jobs to afford to live here. I budget like crazy, and I would love to own a home someday. However, I'm not sure how easily achievable that goal is. This 25% rate increase would increase Montanans' bills by an average of $364 per year, which is about half a week of work for me at my main income job. That's 20 hours of work. It is also my net income for a whole month after paying for bills, groceries, rent, and other various bills. Point being that this is not an insignificant amount of money to me and to many Montanans who work low-paying jobs. $364 may not seem super significant for a whole year, because the CEO of Northwestern Energy makes that much in only 25 minutes of work. However, like I said, that's a whole month of net income for me and for many Montanans. I don't believe it's fair for ratepayers, your constituents, to front the bill for many projects, such as the Laurel gas plant, which I deem unnecessary, which did not seek approval of the public commission sorry, I'm not very good at public speaking, which did not get approval of the public commission before commencing construction. And overall, I strongly encourage you to stand against this rate increase and protect and advocate for the future of working class Montanans by voting against this rate increase. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. McMahon, for your comments. We appreciate it. All right, our next public commenter is Grace Butler. Ms. Butler, are you on?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead and state and spell your name for the record, and welcome. Ms. Butler, you're muted.
Thank you.
There you go. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you all. Grace Butler, GraceButler. I'm calling in from Missoula, Montana, and I am calling in to echo the voices that we've already heard today. I'm asking you to vote no on Northwest Energy's rate hike. I am an instructor at the University of Montana. It's the way that I'm paying for my graduate schooling, in hopes of kind of building a better life for myself. And I really love my job. I essentially teach a class each semester. And I'm calling in because I wanted to make a comment on how this issue will have a great impact on my community, my friends, my colleagues, and especially my students. Really, my concern here is just how much of a financial knife edge we're all standing on already, but especially for my students. I have about 24 a semester, and by the end of each semester, I have a number who disappear. And in part, they disappear because they're working full-time jobs. They can't really afford to live where we live. And they become so burnt out trying to make money in order to pay for their schooling, to pay for their housing, to pay for their food, to pay for their car, to pay for their medical bills, all these things, that they really just can't maintain a life in school. And it's pretty heartbreaking because a lot of my students are really happy to be there, happy to be in class, and the majority of them are from Montana. Many of them are first generation. They're just trying to get a foothold in their education and in the world. And you know, they're really living paycheck to paycheck, as am I and my colleagues. And this rate hike could make the difference between a student staying in school and a student leaving school. And so I just really wanted to encourage the Public Service Commission to support us, to support young people, to support working class people, so that we can continue trying to make our lives better and trying to serve our community. Yeah, this is no small amount of money, and we need your help. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. We appreciate your comment this morning. Our next public commenter is Aaron Shore. All right, Aaron Shore is not on. We will circle back to him at the end of the public comment here. All right, then our next public commenter is Isabel Shada. Shada, are you on?
Yes, hello.
All right, go ahead and state and spell your name for the record and welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Isabel Shada, ISABEL SHAIDA. And I'm speaking today from Bozeman, Montana, to urge you that you deny Northwestern Energy's request for this rate increase. I'm here to echo what others have already said, and also just want to thank everyone who has come today to speak. It is validating to know and also disheartening to know how widely this is felt. I'm a young working person in Bozeman, Montana, and like so many of my peers, I am struggling to make a living. I'm personally lucky enough to have parents who are able to house me, though sometimes I do wish I could afford to live with peers instead. If this were not the case, I would not be able to continue living here. I love Montana and I love the community that I'm part of. However, this community is falling apart. My friends are being priced out and having to move away, and this rate increase is a very great threat to increasing that. It will all but ensure that more and more people will have to leave Montana. And I'm really concerned what will happen to our towns and cities if the people who have lived here, stewarded Montana values, and built strong connections to neighbors, local businesses, and the land all have to move away. It is already hard enough seeing so many of the friends I love leave. I urge you to do your job and take care of the people who elected you. This rate increase will have us paying 50% more for our energy than surrounding states. And surely Northwestern Energy can figure out how to provide us with reliable energy for a more reasonable cost. For instance, they could stop hurting the increasingly affordable energy sources like wind and solar and instead invest in them. It is ridiculous and it is destroying our communities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments this morning, Ms. Shada. All right, we'll give there he is. All right, Mr. Aaron Shore, are you with us?
Yes.
All right, go ahead and state and spell your name for the record and welcome.
Aaron, Aaron. Last name is Schuerr.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I'm just, I wanted to come out against the rate increase. I think quite simply that we've all had to learn to live within our means in difficult economic times, and it's time that Northwest Energy did the same in their own business practices. And the idea that they're going to raise our rates far above any state around us makes no sense. So I hope that you hold them to account. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your comment this morning. Seeing no other public commenters. All right. Thank you to everybody who publicly commented this morning. Let's move to announcements. We do have one change to the agenda this morning. This would be work session item number 5, the Blue Book policy revisions. Commission initiated matter. We will defer this item to a future meeting. Action items. Number 1 is approval of the commission minutes for the week of March 27, 2023. Is there a motion, Vice President Fielding?
Mr. President, I move adoption of the minutes for the week of March 27th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Bukacek has seconded. Discussion, changes, revisions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Vice President's motion to approve the commission minutes for the week of March 27, 2023 as written, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. Seeing no objection, commission minutes are approved unanimously. All right, let's move straight into our work session items. Docket number 1 is the complaint against Northwestern Energy by Mr. Dale Robinson. We're here to consider accepting a formal complaint against Northwestern Energy and beginning dispute resolution procedures under the commission's small generator interconnection rules, administrative rule of Montana 38.5.8413. Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, commissioners. As mentioned, Dale Robinson is the complainant in this particular docket. He would like to install a solar array at his residence. Northwestern's tariff currently requires that array to include an external disconnect switch. Mr. Robinson asserts that the tariff rule should be waived or modified since the modern equipment that he intends on installing, he believes, includes other safety features that would eliminate the need for the external disconnect switch. Mr. Robinson has requested the appointment of a technical master in this case. Current commission rules allow for that appointment. I'll read for you Montana Administrative Rule 38.5.8413 Part 3, which states that when disputes relate to the technical application of this section, the commission may designate a technical master to resolve the dispute. Upon commission designation, the parties shall use the technical master to resolve disputes related to interconnection. Costs for dispute resolution conducted by the technical master shall be established and allocated by the technical master, subject to review and approval or disapproval by the commission. So at some point in this proceeding, we would need either commission approval for the appointment of a particular technical master, or if the parties are able to agree on the appointment of a technical master, I do believe staff could confirm that as an undisputed matter during the course of this case under the Blue Book. However, at this point, the commission need only decide whether the complaint substantially complies with the commission's filing requirements. There are 4 filing requirements for the formal complaint process. First is the full name, postal address, and telephone number of each complainant and his attorney or representative, if any. The full name and post office address of the telephone number of each defendant against whom the complaint is made. A clear, concise statement of the respect in which any rate, charge, schedule, classification, rule, regulation, or practice is unjust or unreasonable, and the particular relief desired. That comes from Montana Administrative Rule 38.2.2102. You have in your meeting materials today the full set of documents Mr. Robinson filed with his complaint. Upon review of those documents, it's my opinion that it does satisfy the commission's minimum filing requirement. I would note there is one wrinkle with the complaint. It does nominally name the Montana Public Service Commission as a defendant. I have called Mr. Robinson. We've talked through that and explained that the commission really can't hear a complaint against itself. He is fine with that. He named the commission because the commission signs and stamps each tariff approved for each utility. So at the end of the day here, though, the relief requested would be a modification or waiver of the tariff, which the commission has the jurisdiction to authorize. For that reason, staff's recommendation at this point is to accept the formal complaint of Mr. Robinson. After that, we will serve the formal complaint on Northwestern Energy and begin the process of identifying the technical master with as much speed as the process will allow.
Before we entertain a motion on this, I just want to pick up on the point that you just made about the Montana Public Service Commission being named as a defendant, and you averred that Mr. Robinson is okay with removing us. Is that?
Mr. President and commissioners, at this point, Mr. Robinson is not represented by attorney. He's appearing pro se, which is permissible in an administrative proceeding like this, because he's not representing a business entity. I don't know that it would be fair to say that he appreciates the significance of naming the commission as a defendant. However, he has confirmed for me that he is fine letting the commission process this as a formal complaint against Northwestern Energy only.
Do we need, Mr. Hamilton, do we need some kind of representation in writing from Robinson that that's the case? Can we sua sponte dismiss ourselves from a complaint?
Mr. President, it's an interesting procedural problem. After the commission has accepted this as a formal complaint against Northwestern Energy only, we'll have the opportunity for additional discussions with the parties and perhaps some written clarification of the scope of the relief requested, in particular the parties on the defendant side of the V in Mr. Robinson's complaint.
All right, I'm satisfied with that answer, Mr. Hamilton. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Yes, with your permission, I wanted to ask a question prior to a motion. And that is that, as I mentioned to you the other day, it seemed to me that when this issue came up to us and we voted on this years ago, that the compelling testimony to me was from a representative of the electricians union saying that although certain regulations may not require that external switch, that the electricians would refuse to work on a system that didn't have that external switch on it. My question is this: a technical master would judge things based on the technicalities, but the testimony of the electricians, should that still be the same testimony, would not play a role in a decision the technical master would entertain. So it seems to me that there's two different avenues right here, and that technical master would only solve one of them, but not the other. Am I?
Mr. President, Commissioner O'Donnell, I don't know that I would 100% agree with the premise that the technical master would not consider the input of the experts in the field who would be working on the system. I think perhaps that's maybe one of the points of the technical master, is to have someone with a background in electrical engineering or in grid management or in one of the other technical fields that is touched by this particular complaint, to come in and hear the evidence, the technical evidence about why it would be perhaps unsafe for an electrician to work on a system without external disconnect switch, why electricians would be unwilling to perform any services on that system without the external disconnect switch. I do believe that's well within the technical master's ability to take evidence and make findings based on that evidence.
Mr. President, one word.
Commissioner O'Donnell, I'm going to move to accept the formal complaint of Mr. Robinson and direct staff to identify one or more technical masters to assist in resolving the dispute. Is there a second?
A second.
Commissioner Buchek is seconded. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Is it possible to direct the technical master to consider other things other than purely technical considerations?
Mr. President, Commissioner O'Donnell, the technical master process would still be governed by all the same procedural administrative contested case rules that govern commission proceedings. So to the extent that testimony is offered from somebody who is offering, I suppose, a perspective different than the technical perspective, that would be, I suppose, premature at this point to judge whether it is material and would satisfy the rules of evidence to be admitted. But that would be the type of consideration that the technical master would need to make in the moment based on the testimony offered to, and if it was relevant, had any bearing, any likelihood of making a fact of consequence more or less likely in the case, then it would be proper to take that evidence.
But Mr. President, then I will support the motion with reservations as I've expressed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. Vice President Fielding.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want some clarification, if I could, regarding your motion. Do you intend to address the removal of the PSC as a defendant? Is your motion address that, or do you not intend to address that?
Excellent question, Vice President Fielder. So I would say that what we heard from Mr. Hamilton is that once the technical master is appointed or selected, that the PSC would procedurally notify the technical master that there's a problem with the named defendants to avoid the appearance that I raised in my question to Mr. Hamilton of us looking like we're taking actions to dismiss ourselves from the complaint.
Okay, thank you for that. So would it then be out of order for the motion to be that we accept the complaint except for portion naming ourselves as a defendant, and that would straighten it out? Or are you saying that that would be improper to do that?
Mr. Hamilton, maybe you should address that question.
Yeah, Mr. President and Vice President, it's a fair question, right? And there are a couple of different ways that the commission can approach this matter. You don't have jurisdiction really to hear a complaint lodged against yourselves to make a decision about any action or omission taken by the commission in that sense. So the acceptance of the formal complaint, such as I would construe it, is an acceptance of the complaint against Northwestern Energy only. As we proceed through the hearings examiner process, or rather the technical master process, the technical master would have the purview to make a recommendation to the commission about the sort of amendments to tariffs that may be required in the interest of complying with technical necessities. But that is formally not relief against the commission, right? It's relief that the commission can authorize within its jurisdiction. So it's a fair procedural problem presented by the complaint filed by Mr. Robinson. However, I believe that the motion as stated really can't exceed what the commission's jurisdiction is, which is to accept the complaint as a formal complaint against Northwestern Energy only.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. So is that your intent with your motion, Mr. President?
I'm sorry, I cannot call on a member of the audience on this, but I appreciate it. The answer to your question, Vice President Fielder, is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Discussion, Commissioner O'Donnell.
One thing, you just alluded to something that may be the answer to my question. The technical master, whatever he comes up with, is still subject to acceptance or rejection by this commission. Is that correct? If that person would be making recommendations to the commission?
Mr. Brown and President Brown and Commissioner O'Donnell, the relief requested here is a waiver or modification of the tariff, which is an action that only the commission can take. The technical master would not be able to take that action unilaterally. So yes, if that is the relief that the technical master recommends, it would be subject to commission approval through a commission order.
Additional discussion? Commissioner Panocci.
Thank you, Mr. President. Say, Lucas, that this guy wins and he doesn't have to put in this visible load breaker disconnect switch. He goes to hire an electrician to work on the system. I, as an electrician, if I feel the need, it has to be there, I'm going to say, look, buddy, I'm not working on this system unless that breaker is installed. Then he's going to have to put it in or they're not going to work on it. So the electrician still has the ability to say, I want that safety there, or you can find someone else to work on it. And if he can't find anyone to work on it, he's going to have to put it in simply to find an electrician to service this in the future. Do you think that's a possibility, and is that worth bringing up that could happen?
Mr. Hamilton, if you feel like that answering this question in any way prejudges the case or interferes with the fair resolution of this matter before the technical master, you are free to answer the question.
Mr. President, I appreciate that. Commissioner Panocci, I believe I could say that the commission's jurisdiction extends to the regulated entity, Northwestern. It would not extend to the acts of a third party electrician hired by Mr. Robinson.
Thank you. The point I'm trying to make is it's very likely if he's going to find someone to work on it, they're going to have to put it in anyway. I just think that's important to point out. That could be a possibility.
Additional discussion. Lukacek.
Might we consider deferring this until we have clarification as far as the PSC being in the mention as a defendant in the case? Might we await clarification?
Can I ask you a question? What kind of additional clarification do you think you would need?
That will be removed?
Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah, Mr. President, Commissioner Bukacek, it's a fine question. Our friends at Northwestern have passed me a note that says that they would stipulate to the dismissal of the PSC as a defendant, which is fine as it is. Mr. Robinson, of course, is the master of his own complaint. So the decision about who to name is functionally his to make. As I mentioned, I did have a conversation with Mr. Robinson on the phone where he understands that the commission cannot hear a complaint against itself. It can provide relief with respect to one of its regulated entities. So I don't know that we necessarily need to defer this one. And my recommendation would remain the same, that we can accept the formal complaint at this point and proceed with treating it as a formal complaint against Northwestern Energy.
Lukacek, does that satisfy your?
That satisfied me completely.
Thank you. Additional discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of my motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. Seeing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. All right, let's move to work session item number 2. This is docket 2021.04.053, Commission initiated amendment to the NESC rulemaking. We're here to consider issuing an amended notice regarding the Commission's amendment to incorporate the 2023 National Electrical Safety Code in Montana Administrative Rule 38.5.1010. Mr. Palco.
Thank you, President Brown and Commissioners. Good morning. Before you today is a second notice to the rulemaking concerning the National Electric Safety Code adoption of rules that has previously been before you and has also been previously published in the Montana Administrative Register. Second notice is necessary to clarify the rulemaking procedures in this rulemaking. Rule was and still is contemplated as no hearing. However, the body of the original notice contained language that contemplated a hearing. Thus, the second notice in front of you makes the no hearing contemplated language consistent throughout the notice. Staff recommends approval of the amended notice and allows staff to make non-substantive edits as necessary and required by the Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Palco. Is there a motion, Commissioner O'Donnell?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to accept staff's recommendation on this issue to conform Montana's rules to the National Electrical Safety Code.
Is there a second? Commissioner Bukacek.
Second.
Commissioner Bukacek has seconded. Discussion. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Just that I understand the need for the second for clarification purposes, and clarification is always a very good thing. But so this is merely recognizing that putting Montana's code in conformity with the National Electrical Safety Code. And I think that's something we've always done every single year. And I think this is a very healthy thing for the state of Montana to do, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. Additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Commissioner O'Donnell's motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying no. Seeing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Colleagues, would you indulge me in a 5-minute break? All right, the time is now 10:12 a.m. We'll go off the record here for 5 minutes and 10:17. Thank you. All right, time is now 10:18 a.m. We will go back on the record. We had left off with the completion of work session item number 2, which was docket 2021.04.053. We'll now move to work session item number 3, which is docket number 2021.06.081. This is high quality H2O. This is a matter that we deferred from last week. This is high quality H2O's application for rates and charges for service in Missoula, Montana. To consider a draft final order in this matter, Mr. Fink.
Good morning, President, Commissioners. Yesterday, staff distributed a memo that provided updated rate calculations discussed at last week's business meeting on 2 additional scenarios of addressing management salary costs. The 2 additional scenarios raise the management expense to $40 per hour with and without a 25% operating ratio adder. Those can be seen scenario 4 and 5 in the memo. Also, if the commission raises the management expense to $40 per hour and includes the 25% operating ratio adder, the total refund will drop from $60,375 to $49,412, which can be seen in Table B of the memorandum. Mr. Hamilton and myself are available for any questions.
Mr. Hamilton, anything?
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioners, I would only add that at this point, staff's recommendation does formally remain the same as it was before, which is shown in scenario 3 of your new memo.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Hamilton. Is there a motion, Vice President Fielder?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the commission adopt staff recommendation on the proposed draft order with the exception of replacing scenario 3 concerning the company's management rate with scenario 5.
Okay.
If there's a second, I'd like to explain my motion.
Is there a second? I will second for purposes of moving this matter forward. So we have a motion and a second, Vice President Fielder.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. So the recommendation that comes from MCC regarding the salary that the management position should be obtaining is based on U.S. Bureau of Labor.
Vice President Fielder, if you'll indulge me.
Yes, sir.
So scenario 5 would be to adopt the company's rate of $40 per hour and 25 hours per month, resulting in an annual management cost of $12,000, and to disallow a 25% operating ratio adder.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So the purpose for my motion is I find it unreasonable that MCC has concluded that the manager of this utility should only be permitted to be paid $19 and some change an hour. I think that's actually while it would be better for the consumer, it's not necessarily fair to the company. There is a manager that has to oversee every aspect of the company. Although it's a small company, they still do have to keep the company operating. And so I find the hourly rate of $40 an hour for the management position, the manager that basically runs all aspects of the company, to be fair. However, and I do note that the applicant has cited to the same U.S. Bureau of Labor median average hourly wage data that MCC used, but basically the company is saying MCC used a clerical hourly rate wage, and the company is saying, but our manager is a manager. Although she does clerical work, she also has to ensure that the company is running. She has to oversee the contractors, oversee the billing and the business administration and the customer service, and basically every single aspect of the business, which is true. Nobody else is doing that. It's a one person So I think that person has far more responsibility than just a clerk would have, a $19 an hour clerical position would be expected to have. So I think the 40 is fair, although I'm fine with disallowing the 25% ratio adder on that, in part because the evidence for the $40 an hour wage is not as robust as it could have been. But also in part because with that adder, we don't get to a place where the customers are refunded the full amount that's due to them in that 4-year period. So what my motion would do, colleagues, is table 5 or scenario 5, it would decrease the current rates by almost 46% what they're paying now. So these people would, these customers would be paying $24.43 a month. I would like you to consider what is likely to happen if the company decides that, oh, we've assigned them some very unfair rate and said, oh, you're just a clerk. I think that would be very discouraging for the company and it'd be seen as not fair. I would see it as not fair if someone did that to me. I think we may risk having this company decide that it's not worth staying in business anymore. And if that's the case, I think the evidence supports that the likely scenario, or at least a likely scenario, would be that these customers then would be put on the city of Missoula water system, which would include pretty expensive connection fees. And the base rate for city of Missoula water fees is $51 and something per month right now. Plus they charge more in the summertime for extra water usage and that type of thing. So I think these customers would end up paying a lot more if this company decides to go out of business. My motion intends to make sure the customers are refunded what they were overcharged, so they will get that back. But I'm trying to find that balance and hoping that we can find a balance where we don't discourage this company so badly that they decide to just walk away and put these customers in a pretty bad position. So that's the purpose for my motion. I know there's going to be discussion on this. I just want to say that that's my reasoning. I don't take exception to further discussion on the matter. At rate school, we had 22 teams and we had 21 different answers on how to design rates. So it's wide open, but it is a company in my district and I have put a significant amount of effort into trying to find a balance on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Fielder. Commissioner Bukacek.
I have a couple of different points I'd like to make. One is that I generally just kind of personally don't respond real well to potential extortion, like somebody saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to do that. I usually like to respond based on what I think is the right thing. And some of the issues that came up, high quality H2O, it failed to provide sufficient evidence in support of the hours and hourly wage of $12,000 per year management expense. Billing for this company is done for 34 residential accounts quarterly. No meter reads are required, no employees to manage, no water treatment equipment, water testing and DEQ reporting are handled by a contractor. So, and they weren't able to support the hours and hourly wage. Furthermore, I point out that the manager is part owner and therefore has that additional income from the business. Operating income came to $2,117 per customer served. The owners took all the income from the business in the form of owner draws and apparently overcharged the customers. So I would support the staff's recommendation and not the $40 an hour.
Are you making an alternative motion at this point in time or?
May I?
Of course you can.
I make an alternative motion to accept the staff's recommendation as stated.
Okay, so let me see if I understand your motion. So your motion is to adopt the staff recommendation, which is to adopt all the Montana Consumer Council's recommendations, except the disallowance of the 25% adder on the reduced management expense. Correct?
That is correct.
Is there a second to that motion? I'll do the same courtesy. I will second that motion. Discussion. Commissioner O'Donnell. This is on Commissioner Bukacek's motion.
And the motion is to accept the staff's recommendation.
That's
So I'll
correct.
be responding to that. In which case I would like to ask a series of questions to Mr. Rosequist.
Mr. Rosequist, welcome. Like the price is right, you can come on down.
And the purpose is that you were among the staff I'm looking at here, the only one who was here at the time that this was originally, the rate was set. Okay. So one thing that mystifies me is that if I read that the standard rate at the time was $50 a month, and yet the commission approved 30, 35, 40, and 45 on there. And I'm just wondering why it was set so much lower than the standard rate and why the escalation clause is on there, if you recall.
Mr. President, Commissioner O'Donnell, I do not recall. I did not work on the original docket when it was before the commission, so I'm not able to answer off the top of my head how that transpired. I don't know. You may try redirecting to Mr. Fink, who may have done some research in working on this docket to see what happened in the past.
Okay.
Would you like to redirect to Mr. Fink?
Yes, please.
Mr. Fink?
President Brown, Commissioner O'Donnell. What I can say about what happened previously with high quality is when they applied for the standard rate, I believe they purchased the system in 2014. And when they applied for the standard rate, the MCC, Montana Consumer Council, had intervened in that matter. And they had done a cost analysis study on their expenses and kind of did a mock operating ratio and presented that in their evidence. And that is where the $25 rate come in for the refund, which is what they proposed. The commission authorized rate in that docket. But I can't say anything further to that. So thank you.
All up, Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yes, thank you. I'm really concerned and even troubled. Basically, is that the mandate of this commission is to rates that are fair to ratepayers and also to the utility involved in here. It seems to me when the commission had some basis for saying $30 initially as opposed to $50, that there was a sound reason for that. After analysis, the ORM had not been formulated at that point as it is now, so it wasn't subject to that. But and then when apparently the order of the commission at the time was that rates would after final rates were set after the standard rate, after the interim rates, that they would be subject to refund. Okay, but that doesn't seem to square with me as to why there was that escalation in there of $5 more a month if it was stated originally that the rates might be excessive. My point is that it doesn't seem to me to be fair to the utility to allow them to charge people at a certain rate based upon analysis by the Public Service Commission, and then to come back later on and to say, you have to refund to your customers $60,000. It seems to me that that the commission, by having that escalation in there, sort of set them up for this situation. And I share the concerns of Commissioner Fielder that a much lower rate plus $60,000 refund is that they might just simply walk away from the whole thing, which would be to the detriment of the ratepayers in this situation. But that just doesn't seem to be fair to me. I don't know if you can respond to that, or if anybody can respond to that.
Mr. Hamilton?
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner O'Donnell, I think I can shed a little bit of light on this by referring back to the commission's order in September of 2018 that approved that tiered structure implementing a standard rate of sorts. First, it should be noted that High Quality Water requested that phased implementation. They asked for $30 per month until February of 2018, $35 per month from July 2018 through December 2018, $40 a month after that, and then $45 a month. So that was the original request submitted by High Quality Water. In the commission's order, which is order 7605B, the commission found that High Quality's operating and maintenance expenses were insufficient compared to operating expenses of similar water utilities with relatively similar number of customers. The commission then walked through some examples of other small water companies under the commission's regulation that had reported substantially higher expenses as part of their normal annual reports and their ORM rate applications, or excuse me, their rate applications in general. The commission found that High Quality's monthly customer charge is substantially lower as it reported only marginal operating expenditures compared to similar utilities. And as a result, High Quality's currently reported expense information indicates that implementation of the standard rates would result in excessive rates beyond its reported costs of service. However, as discussed above, due to High Quality Water's lack of typically reported reasonably substantial operation maintenance costs, the commission finds the standard rates are nonetheless reasonable for High Quality Water and its customers because these typical expenditures, had they been reported, would have justified basically the rate, that tiered structure of the rate. The commission did clarify, though, in its paragraph 14 of its order approving the application on an interim basis, that the rates would be subject to refund if they were later found to be unreasonable because the expenses of the company did not increase to match the standard rate that was actually being collected. So the commission did approve High Quality Water's request for that phased in approach on the assumption that, historical costs were being underreported, but that if the costs actually continued to be underreported, that there were no costs incurred, the commission did make clear that the overcollection would be subject to a refund.
Follow up.
Thank you. That is information I didn't have before. That High Quality Water is the one that asked for that rate. Still, the commission is the one that approved that with all of those caveats and everything else like that. And it just seems to me that it is unfair to them and bad precedent to ask them to retroactively refund that money. So I would oppose any motion that includes that $60,000 refund. I might support, and I don't really want to make this a motion at this point, maybe cutting that in half perhaps, and just saying both sides, erred on the matter. I think that would be sort of a fair type of thing. That's not the Solomonic thing of cutting the baby in half because then the baby's dead. But I think this would keep the situation alive for the ratepayers as well as the utility. I support the $40 an hour that Commissioner Fielder enunciated. And I wanted to ask you, is that because the ORM, which is their application now is based on the ORM, that by not having the 25% adder on there, would that make this order discriminatory? It seemed to me that would be a part of that is built into the ORM, and that is a significant feature of that, and that by denying that, we would be it would be an illegal act.
I presume that's a question to you, Mr. Hamilton. Go ahead.
Yes.
Mr. President, Commissioner O'Donnell, in denying the 25% adder, what the commission would have to do is conclude that the evidence does not substantiate the $40 an hour as the market rate for the related party transaction here. So the ORM does distinguish between normal costs that go to third parties and costs with related parties, the owners, for example, of the system. If a related party cost is at a market rate, you can still add the 25% adder to it. However, the ORM does call upon each company to answer whether or not that related party expense was at a market rate. And if the answer to that is no, then it's a straight pass through of the cost. It's not, you don't apply the operating ratio to it to add 25% on top of it. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat.
Okay. The long and short of it, I guess, Mr. President and Commissioner O'Donnell, is that the commission has set up an ORM methodology here where related party expenses may or may not be subject to that 25% adder based on whether or not they are a market rate. And for that reason, I don't believe it would be in conflict with the ORM structure the commission has set up.
Thank you. I was just concerned about the precedential nature of that in the future cases that, whether or not we are, for whatever reason, jettisoning an integral part of the ORM process and therefore decreasing its integrity for future applicants on this and using it to say, well, there's no certainty here. I don't know what we're going to do and everything else like that. So that was my concern, is for certainty's sake. So, Mr. President, so I'm hesitant to make a motion, but having stated my preferences on this thing, it's an amalgamation of different things, but basically it would be to
Commissioner O'Donnell, could I ask you to,
of course.
So what we have before us is the motion to amend by Commissioner Bukacek. Are you doing it? Well, it's a substitute. It's a substitute. So we have one motion on the table right now to the underlying motion. Okay, so we rule it out of order at this point and stay on Commissioner Bukacek's motion. Okay, whatever happens with this vote, then that will become back either Vice President Fielder's motion will be the underlying motion or Commissioner Bukacek's motion will be the underlying motion. So
May I say a few more things?
Let me
hold on.
clarify. My remarks were directly related to her motion, Mr. President.
I would ask you to defer making your motion until we resolve Commissioner Bukacek's motion with your indulgence, Commissioner
Thank you.
O'Donnell.
You bet.
Thank you. Commissioner Bukacek.
Okay, I wanted to reiterate that I would still take that stand and make that motion based on what Mr. Fink and Mr. Hamilton said today, which was all clearly, aptly, and duly noted in the information that we were given to read. At the time of approving the standard rate that was requested by High Quality Water, the PSC expressly warned High Quality Water that excess returns will be subject to a refund at the required 3-year compliance rate application. So it is, in my opinion, not correct that we made an error. That is not so. This warning is documented under Order 7605B, as Mr. Hamilton stated. So the information of actual expenditures that were provided after the 3 years shows that the approved standard rates were excessive, that residential customers overpaid for water service over 4 years, and customer refunds were warranted. That part's agreed upon.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Bukacek. Vice President Fielder.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. And I agree that a refund is definitely warranted. I have a question. Whichever staff would like to field this. Did High Quality Water have an option to charge less than what the commission order set forth?
Mr. President, Vice President, no, they must comply with the commission order and charge the rates as approved by the commission. Of course, that doesn't prohibit any company from coming in and asking for a modification of their rate. They can always file a rate application to adjust that rate.
And
follow up.
That is what they are doing now, correct? They have requested a reduced rate, correct?
Mr. President, Vice President, that is correct. The rate proposed by High Quality is lower than the standard rate.
Okay. So, Mr. President, Where I think I differ with my esteemed colleague, Commissioner Bukacek, is that the company didn't have an option to charge less. They were given an order and that is what they charged. And now they are coming back and saying, we collected more than our costs and our allowable return on investment. So they're proposing an adjustment in their rate, which is the process. So I don't know that the company, I can't accuse them of, misconduct in that respect. They're following the procedures that are set forth. As far as the comment about with your motion, that you don't want to operate based on extortion. Of course, none of us do. I don't think that's really the question, though. I think the question is, will the company stay in business, or will they say it's not worth staying in business? And that's a very real reality. And that's what we have to be very careful of, is to make sure that we are allowing a company to charge fair rates and enabling them to recover a return on their effort, some level of profit. If it's not profitable, they're not going to be in business. As far as the third part, which is having collected the dividends out of the company, I don't like that they did that either. I don't think that was a good business practice, but it wasn't against the law, and they have stated in their documentation that they will put money back into the company. It's not a great way to do business, but I think this motion that I had made gets to getting that overcharge back to the customers, allowing them to receive fair compensation for management time. And so that's why I'm going to oppose your motion.
Thank you, Vice President Fielder. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you. One thing that strikes me is that saying at the origination of this order that there would be a subject to refund based upon whether or not there was excessive charges. And then to say, but we have no way of telling you now, you won't know what charges are excessive. We don't know what that fair rate would be until 3-4 years from now. I think that's not exactly the way that if I was a business person, I wouldn't want to be having that sword hanging over my head, as to say, well, I don't know what that will be. What is excessive? It's not up to the utility to know what is excessive or not. So they would have to hold on to every penny, because it might be refunded, portion of it, all of it. They have no idea. And that's seems to me to be an unfair expectation of a company to live in doubt like that. So I just wanted to express my opinion on that refundability type of thing. It's very, very vague and unfair. Besides which, it seems to me the standard for utilities is that we have to leave them set rates so that they're able to attract capital and anyone else. And that applies to companies the size of Northwestern and down to the size of a small water utility. And it seems to me that we're placing this utility in a situation that it's a money losing operation to me, to cut the rate and have the refund at the same time. That as Commissioner Fielder pointed out, I think their extended viability is greatly in question, and therefore our responsibility to the ratepayers.
Okay, colleagues, just to remind you that we are on the substitute motion of Commissioner Bukacek, which is to accept and adopt the staff's recommendation as the substitute motion. Additional discussion? Additional discussion? Of course, it's your motion.
President, I just wanted to say again, being a business owner for quite a few decades, business owners have responsibility, and this warning that was lined out by our staff that told us about it, Order 7605B was given to them back in 2018, and it is the business's responsibility to find out if they're excessive.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Bukacek. Additional discussion? Seeing none, I think we'll do a roll call vote on this. Okay, again, you're voting on the substitute motion of Commissioner Bukacek to make staff recommendation as the underlying motion of the commission. Okay. Vice President Fielding.
I vote no.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
No.
Commissioner Panoche. Commissioner Bukacek.
Yes.
I am going to go with a yes on this. So Commissioner Bukacek's motion is now the underlying motion. So we are on Commissioner Bukacek's motion as the primary motion. Discussion. Vice President Fielder.
Well, colleagues, I hope that this all works out. I fear that we may be driving a company out of business and forcing customers to go to a much higher rate structure. And I hope that's not the case, but I think that may be what we're doing here with this motion.
Okay, thank you, Vice President Fielder. Additional discussion? Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Bukacek? Okay. All right, so this vote would be to adopt Commissioner Bukacek's motion to have the staff recommendation as the final order of the commission, which accepts all of MCC's recommendations except for the disallowance of the 25% adder on the reduced management expense. All right, I think we should probably do a roll call on this one too. Vice President Fielder.
No.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
No.
Commissioner Panoche. Commissioner Bukacek.
No.
You would be voting on your own.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
And I will be a yes on this, so the motion fails by a vote of 3-2. So colleagues, we are at a stalemate on this matter. Is there a motion? Commissioner Fielder?
Mr. President, would it be out of order to return to my original motion?
It would not be out of order to return to your original motion if you'd like to make it.
Colleagues, Mr. President, I'll make the motion and the comment. Colleagues, I move that we adopt the staff recommendation with the exception of replacing scenario 3 with scenario 5.
Is there a second? Commissioner Panoche. Commissioner O'Donnell. All right, I'll second again.
Okay.
Discussion. Vice President Fielder.
Okay, Mr. President, the purpose of my motion is because the other motion failed. So the majority of the commission disagreed with the staff recommendation as stated on all counts. And so this, I think, is a compromise. I really wanted to go with scenario 4, which would be the $40 hourly rate for management and the adder, because I find evidence in the record that the $40 an hour is substantiated by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it should and does qualify for the adder. But I made the motion with scenario 5, disallowing that 25% hour adder as a compromise. So in the spirit of compromise and in order to dispense of this case and start getting these customers their refunds back and lower their rates, I would suggest that we pass this motion.
And just to clarify, you moved scenario 5 again?
Again, yes, sir. So it would be the rate for residential customers would be $24.43 for their water bill. And it's a decrease of 45.72% in the current rates they're paying now. So it's a substantial decrease. Again, the repercussion of not acting or acting in a way that drives them out of business would see customers paying far more than they're paying far more.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you. Let me say that I respect, I really do. I deeply respect the attitudes and opinions and approaches by all of my fellow commissioners. However, a statement was made. It was up to the company to know what is excessive. I think a particular company like this, of which this is a small part of their daily routine, they have no way on earth of knowing what rates are excessive. So that they had no choice, no idea of what might be subject to refund or not. Let me say that I will vote against any motion that calls for the entire $60,000 to be refunded. I would be willing to support half of that because of the uncertainty involved in the whole thing. I also agree with the $40 rate and the 25% adder on there. And I will, I think that's the fair way. And with all due respect to my associates, I will vote against any motion other than that does not have those elements to it, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. Commissioner Pinochi, I would love to hear from you on this matter.
Lucas, we deal with water rates all over the state. When I compare this water rate to other water rates, this seems pretty affordable. And furthermore, there's no water meter. Is that correct?
Mr. President, Commissioner Pinochi, that's correct. There are no meters to read in this system.
I managed a water facility 15 years. This rate seems reasonable. Can you tell me a guess? This has to be towards the bottom of the lowest rates in the state. Is that correct?
Mr. President, Commissioner Pinochi, I don't know that I could make any worthwhile guess there. Perhaps though, Mr. Grant could. I know that we've been reviewing data from the most recent water rate survey. But before I defer to Mr. Fink on this one, I would just note that the rate setting in this particular case is guided by the cost of service principles that are reflected in the ORM methodology, the operating ratio methodology. So it is incumbent upon the utility to report the costs, the expenses that they have actually incurred over the last 3 years. The ORM is designed to be a simplified method of setting a rate based on those costs of providing service. So it's true that as among different water utilities, the cost structures will be markedly different. And in the case of this utility, at least based on the information in the record, the cost structure justifies a lower rate in relation to other utilities providing different types of service. But if I could, Mr. President, then defer to Mr. Fink or Mr. Rosequist.
Fink.
President Brown, Commissioner Pinochi, the rates proposed here, what I can say is they are on the lower end of commission regulated approved rates with the commission. I don't think I'll get into too much detail with other unregulated rates around the state. That's what I can tell you on that.
Follow
up, Commissioner Pinochi.
We're seeing tremendous rate increases across the state. Braden Tracks average water bill $78 a month. People are now refusing to water their lawn because it's over 100. When we install meters, this forces the rates to go up because we have to pay for the meters. We have to install the meters. So in front of water commissions, they say, okay, if we're going to put the meter in, we're going to have to raise the rates. So by not having a water meter, actually can save thousands of dollars. However, then you have one person who can leave the water on all night. No incentive if the toilet valve isn't working and the toilet's running all night long for anyone to fix them. And a toilet valve that's running all night long costs tens of thousands of gallons of water over here. These are some of the issues in front of us, but to be fair, this is a very low rate that they're paying. Is that correct? Compared to other state rates. Sure. Well, I think we answered that. All right. Thank you.
Additional discussion, Commissioner Bukacek.
So I have a lot of respect for business owners. I am one. Calling the rates excessive is based on analysis of the company's return on average capital. It's not based on on what everybody else is doing. They don't have meters, they don't have a lot of employees, et cetera. They don't treat their water. Their returns are not commensurate with other small water utilities of similar risk. Their returns were higher than even the 25% adder allowed in the ORM. And the rates do not comport, as these gentlemen have talked about, with the comparable earning standard established by the U.S. Supreme Court that is considered to be the cornerstone of public utility regulation and forms a basis for determining whether utility rates are just and reasonable. All of that was in our memo.
Thank you, Commissioner Bukacek. Additional discussion on Commissioner Vice President Fielder's motion. I would just add or second what Commissioner Bukacek stated is that the decision here today needs to be made on the facts and evidence that are on the record in this matter. Additional discussion. Okay, we will take a roll call vote on this one too. All right, so before you colleagues is Vice President Fielder's motion to adopt scenario number 5 on the staff's analysis, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Vice President Fielder, but this would be to adopt the company's rate of $40 an hour and 25 hours per month, resulting in an annual management cost of $12,000, while disallowing a 25% operating ratio adder to the $12,000 annual cost. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the residential rate would be $24.43 per month over the next 4 years.
All right, thank you, Vice President Fielder, for clarifying that. So that's the motion before you. So Vice President Fielder.
I call the question, Mr. President. Let's vote.
Okay. Vice President Fielder, what's your vote on your motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. You were question. Thank you. I vote yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner O'Donnell. Commissioner Pinochi. Commissioner Bukacek.
No.
I'm gonna be a no on this. So colleagues, the motion fails on a 1-4 vote. At this point in time, I am going to defer this matter. Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah, Mr. President, just before we move off of this, to throw it out there as a next step that the commission could take, if you feel like you would like to hear more from the parties on this one, we could certainly reach out to them and schedule some sort of oral argument in front of the commission about the evidence that you have before you. But that's only a suggestion, certainly not a requirement.
Mr. President.
I'm going to recognize Vice President Fielder first on this.
Thank you, Mr. President. And that probably is a good idea, in my opinion, to hear from the parties. I really appreciate staff's efforts. I know staff has put a lot of effort into this. I really appreciate the fact they came up with all these different scenarios for us to look at. But yeah, I think there may be some things that could be better understood if we heard from the parties directly.
Mr. O'Donnell.
I concur. Great suggestion.
Someone want to make a motion to that effect, Vice President Fielder?
Mr. President, I move that we go ahead and schedule oral arguments before the commission on this matter.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the Vice President's motion to have the parties hold oral argument on this matter before the commission signify by saying aye.
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 I'm a no. So motion carries 4-1. Thank you, colleagues. All right, just a point of order, as it does not change the outcome of the vote. Commissioner Pinochi informed me that he voted no on that, so it is a 3-2 motion carries. All right, thank you, colleagues, for one of the more interesting matters we've ever had before the commission. All right, let's move to work session item number 4, which is docket 2023.03.023. This is Bresnan Broadband of Montana LLC. This is the petition for arbitration of an interconnection agreement between Bresnan Broadband of Montana LLC and Ronan Telephone Company to consider appointing an arbitrator and waiving the deadline for appointment of an arbitrator arbitrator pursuant to MCA 38.5, 4001, sub paragraph 1, little c. Hamilton.
Mr. President, Commissioners, this one hopefully will be a quicker session. Bresnan Communications has filed a petition to have the commission arbitrate a interconnection agreement with Ronan Telephone Company. This is a rarely used section of federal law and Montana administrative rule implemented by the commission that provides a fairly quick expedited process for arbitration of these sorts of interconnection agreements under some fairly tight deadlines. Commission rule, specifically 38.5.4001(1)(c), discusses how the commission will appoint an arbitrator within 10 days of the receipt of a petition. Because of the timelines involved in this particular petition, this is actually the 11th day, but there's no feasible mechanism given our agenda scheduling cycle for us to get it in within 10 days. So we would recommend that the commission waive that deadline for the purpose of appointing the arbitrator at this point. Under that administrative rule, the commission has a variety of options for appointing an arbitrator. It can appoint the full commission, an individual commissioner, a member of commission staff, or go outside the agency to find a third party to be the arbitrator in this instance. It also discusses how the commission can consult with the parties in the case about the selection of the arbitrator. Yesterday, I was able to have conversations with both counsel for Bresnan Communications and Ronan Telephone Company. And based on those communications, it appears that neither party has any particular preference about going outside of the agency to find an arbitrator with a background, maybe somebody who is specially trained or licensed in arbitration, or somebody who has a particular background in telecommunications interconnections agreements. For that reason, at this point, staff would recommend that we stay in-house for the appointment of an arbitrator. Given the very quick timelines involved in this process and the commission's existing workload, at this point, I would recommend appointing commission staff as the arbitrator, and in particular, commission attorney Laura Vahowski. She and I did speak about this before the work session today to confirm that she is willing, ready, and able to serve as the arbitrator for this process and ensure that we can meet the statutory deadlines that are involved. The next major event in this case will come 2 weeks from today when Ronan Telephone Company files its response to the petition for arbitration. And with that response filed, then the procedural elements of this case can begin in earnest with a procedural order. If the commission agrees with staff recommendation to appoint Laura Vahowski as the arbitrator for this case, that would empower Ms. Vahowski to issue the procedural order and carry this docket through the hearing to ultimately make recommendations for the commission to adopt if the parties are unable to reach any sort of mutual agreement between themselves. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Commissioner Bernocchi, did you want to make a motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we support staff recommendations. Thank you.
I will second the motion. And to clarify, Mr. Hamilton, we are appointing an arbitrator who will be a commission staff, namely Ms. Laura Vahowski. And we are then waiving the deadline for appointment of an arbitrator pursuant to 38.5/4001. Correct?
Mr. President, that is correct.
All right, thank you. Discussion. Being none, all those in favor of Commissioner Pinocchi's motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. Seeing no opposition, motion carries. All right, thank you, Mr. Hamilton. All right, as noted earlier in this meeting, work session item number 5, the Blue Book policy revision has been deferred to a future date. So we'll move to work session item number 6. This is our regularly scheduled legislative update to discuss bills relevant, Montana legislative bills relevant to the PSC mission, statutory authority, administrative process, and general agency concerns, and to discuss PSC budget request presentation, consider staff analysis and recommendation, et cetera. Mr. Rosequist.
Good morning, Mr. President, commissioners. No new bills. Well, there's one potentially new bill to discuss this morning, but just some updates on legislative activity from last week. On Tuesday, March 28th, the Senate Energy and Telecommunications Committee held a hearing on House Joint Resolution 6. The commission voted to support that resolution, and I appeared to represent the commission. However, no action has been taken yet on that bill. The same committee, the Senate Energy and Telecommunications Committee, also held a hearing on House Bill 284 on the same day, March 28th. That is the bill that revises the pre-approval statute in response to the district court decision. That bill did pass out of the Senate Energy Committee with an amendment. We talked about the amendment that came out of the House, which said that the commission order must approve additional costs after the initial pre-approval in a subsequent proceeding. And we were concerned about the use of the word must and how that may potentially box the commission in. So there was some testimony on that issue during the hearing. The Consumer Council actually changed its position to oppose the bill based on that language. So the committee did pass an amendment which changes the language, and it now reads that the commission order must approve or deny an initial cost finding in whole or in part, and any additional costs in excess of the commission approved amount must be approved or denied in whole or in part in a subsequent proceeding. So that's the status of that bill. I haven't talked to legal about it, but it appears to give the commission flexibility applications and subsequent proceedings. Moving on, a bill popped up onto our radar on Wednesday, House Bill 962, sponsored by Representative Lynn Hellegard. That bill would require utilities to receiving notice of any federal regulation that may result in the forced retirement of a qualified electrical generating facility to inform the Office of the Attorney General, and then it authorized the Attorney General to take any action necessary to defend the interests of the state with respect to the qualified electrical generation facilities. That bill also required the PSC to create a catalog of energy resources that are licensed, regulated, or subsidized by the state, including information on the physical condition of the generating facilities. And the bill would appropriate $90,000 to the PSC to implement the bill. The commission received a fiscal note request on that bill, and we were in the process of developing that fiscal note. I attended the hearing as an informational witness to the committee what we were finding in our development of the fiscal note. And a couple of the issues we ran into were that by requiring the commission to catalog energy resources that are subsidized by the state, that potentially brings in all of the small rooftop solar net metering facilities, of which there are thousands out there. So the commission first go through all of those, find out whether anybody received a support through the Universal System Benefits Program, which is funded by ratepayers, or some other kind of tax credit through the EQ program, for example, to determine whether they're subsidized. And then we would have to catalog them and physically inspect their condition. We did interpret the statute as requiring the commission to physically determine the physical condition of those generating facilities. And so there are, 70 or so utility scale generating resources out there. Some of those resources, such as wind farms, include multiple generators. So we were coming up with costs to implement this bill far in excess of the $90,000 that we communicated that to the committee and suggested that if that wasn't what the intent of the bill was, that they should maybe clarify some of those terms. As it turned out, though, the bill ended up getting tabled soon after the bill was completed. Then on Thursday, the Senate Energy and Telecommunications Committee held a hearing on House Bill 729. That's the bill that provides for advanced conductor cost effectiveness, sponsored by Representative Stephen Galloway. The commission supports that bill. Commissioner Pinocci appeared and supported the bill on behalf of the commission. He appeared as an informational witness. No committee action has been taken on that bill yet. On Friday, March 31st, the Senate Business and Labor Committee held a hearing on House Bill 492. That's a bill that the commission supports. It revises telecommunications regulation to eliminate provisions of the Act that are obsolete. That bill is sponsored by Representative Kenny Zolnikoff. Both President Brown and myself were not able to attend that hearing. And so Lucas Hamilton testified in support of the bill for the commission, and Gary Duncan appeared as a witness. No committee action has been taken on that bill at this time. And two other updates on other bills supported by the PSC: Senate Bill 32, revising pipeline safety regulation penalties, and Senate Bill 33, repealing Class C regulation. Those hearings were held last Monday on March 27th in the House Energy Committee. And still no committee action. That completes my legislative report for the week.
Thank you, Mr. Rosequist. I would just note for the record that House Bill 10, which we are tracking here at the agency as it contains part of our ready funding, is Senate Finance and Claims this morning. And then House Bill 2, which of course is our general budget. We've been notified we may appear before Senate Finance and Claims this Thursday afternoon. Any other discussion, Commissioner Pinocci?
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought I'd mention that Representative Galloway's bill had 3 new commissioners for a day support that bill. I got a call from Representative Butcher. He said that there was a energy bill in front of a taxation committee, which I think Representative Fielder chairs, where they were expecting the Public Service Commission to testify, and we weren't there. And so they asked what my explanation was, and I told them that I didn't know about the bill. No one talked to me about it, and that I didn't see any mention of it when we go to review our bills. I then received a text from Representative Galloway, who thought I should apologize to the committee. And I asked him if he had contacted our staff to go over the bill, and he said he did not. I did want to remind everybody that we sent a letter out to all the representatives encouraging them, if they have a bill that has to do with energy, to please work with our staff. And I certainly want to apologize that I wasn't aware of the bill, but no one had talked to me about it. Any idea how that got slipped through the crack, I guess? Will, what are your thoughts?
Do you know what the bill number is?
I think it was House Bill 928. Lucas, can you tell me if it was House Bill 928? I could sure get back to you on that. I did check with Lucas just to see if Representative Galloway may have given him the language. I sure encourage all the representatives to get us the language, so the Public Service Commissioner has, the Public Service Commission staff has an opportunity to take a look at it. Certainly want to give a fair shot for us to support the bills. And it's frustrating to stand against a representative's bill on energy when we have no idea that it's coming or going. And perhaps we would have not supported this bill, or maybe we would have, I don't know. But I told Representative Butcher today I would bring it up and apologize just because I had no idea that the bill existed. So.
Mr. Hamilton, do you have a answer to Commissioner Pinocchi's question?
Mr. President, Commissioner Pinoche, I do. That was House Bill 931, provide a partial property tax exemption for high efficiency transmission lines. It was introduced on March 26th, referred to the committee on the 27th, hearing was held on the 29th. So a very quick process for that particular bill. And then as it happens, it was tabled in committee on March 30th.
Thank you.
Additional legislative discussion? Seeing none. A few public announcements. We will not be having a commission business meeting next Tuesday, like April 11th. We will be right in the midst of the Northwest Energy rate case. So our next commission business meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 18, 2023 at the usual time of 9:30. Seeing no further business to come before the commission, the time is now 11:19 a.m. I will adjourn today's meeting.